All right. We're up and running here, which is great. Welcome to the live stream, everyone. This is our November live stream. And super excited. We're going to be talking about a number of different things. We'll probably touch on a few camera related items. We're going to talk about the Candy Art series. What else? I have a few things on here. The zine. Some upcoming videos to the channel that I'm really excited about. And also, this is just general photography talk. So anything that you guys are also interested in, photography related, let's jump into it. I know sometimes we talk about like movies and stuff also. So really anything and everything can go. If it's photography or art or creativity related, then yeah, let's get into it. And if you're watching this live, of course, jump in, join the conversation, direct the conversation even. Sometimes people will get me going off on some tangents. But if you're watching it and this is after it was live, feel free to comment as well, especially if you have questions or if you have thoughts, or even if there's something you want to talk about. You know, any of your questions or thoughts, I'll go back and answer after the fact, even if it's not live. But if you have things that you want to talk about, then a lot of times those can get rolled over into the next live stream that we do. So even if it's not live, you can still jump in and participate. But yeah, so November live stream. I will also say October, we did like 3 live streams, I want to say. And I intended to do 4 to 5 because I fully wanted to do at least one live stream every week. And I know there was one week that I did 2. I did like a Monday and a Thursday. So in reality, I probably only did 2 weeks of a live stream. And then, yeah, so I guess I only did 2 weeks. I only did half the month, but I got 3 streams out of it, which is good. But hey, you know, sometimes it's busy and you aren't able to jump in and do exactly what you hoped. But, you know, I've been doing I did 1 live stream in September. So I guess even though I didn't do 1 a week in October, I still got 3 live streams out of it. So I'd say that's a half failure and half success, and I'm happy enough with that. But I think probably the default is going to be 1 live stream a month, and then just if I have more energy and more ability, then I'll certainly do more. Hey, welcome to the stream. I wish there was a way I could get this live chat much closer so I don't have to look way off screen to see it. But how's it going? Welcome to the stream. I was just talking about how last month I did 3 streams, which is at least 2 more than I normally do. So I was happy with that. But it was my intent to do 1 live stream a week, and I certainly failed in that regard. But, you know, what are you going to do? You take the positive with what you can get. I'm doing well. Thanks, you. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I would say for me right now it is insane in terms of busyness. So in my day job, it is extraordinarily busy, absolutely the busiest time of the year, really just because I have my team is out. So I'm doing it all. But photography wise, also very busy. There's been a carnival that rolled into town probably, what was it? I think I found out about it Friday night. My girlfriend texted me, sent me like a little link to something on Reddit, and I saw this like carnival being set up and someone posting like, oh, does anyone know what this is? And I instantly knew what it was. I was like, oh, there's an arcade right over there, and every year they do a like 1 year celebration. Every year they make it another year. They do a big carnival in the parking lot. So I will tell you, since Friday, which I guess we're coming up on a week tomorrow, but since Friday, I have been 3 times to the carnival already, and very likely will go at least one more time. It's here till I think the 21st, so I have all next week I could go. And, carnivals rarely pass through here for whatever reason. And when they do, next to impossible to find out about them. So I've been taking every opportunity I can to go shoot. So we're already getting 2 videos out of this carnival. Can we get a third? That's the question. Although I might go one time just for the fun of it, but yeah, that's been really exciting to be able to take a break maybe from kind of the candy art stuff and go out and shoot the carnival, which I haven't gotten to do in a long time. Also, thank you guys. Appreciate the likes. That's awesome. Been preparing for the cold weather to try to plan photo projects inside or limited outdoors. That is like a real thing. And I think it's kind of, it's probably the same, but it's also probably a little different for you versus myself, where for me, the summertime is the no-go time. That is not for being outside. It is so hot. If you're going to be outside, you have to be like on a patio with misters and a drink, or you got to be in the water somewhere. So for me, photography doesn't exist in the summer, at least not outdoors. It doesn't exist, which is another reason why I love doing so much still life stuff, because you could just do it indoors. But for me, the colder weather is not really that bad here, maybe 2 weeks at most. So you don't even really need to consider the cold weather. But for you, being much further north, I'm sure the colder weather is really where you have to go to consider what kind of photography you're going to be doing. So yeah, I could get that. Granted, if it snows, it is an amazing time to shoot. Yeah. I feel like snow is just so, I mean, from my scope, we don't get snow here often. Last 2 years we did, and we got actually a pretty sizable amount, which was more than I think I've ever seen down here in Austin. But I'm sure up there you get quite a bit of snow. But I think, yeah, there is some amazing opportunities with the snow that I think if I lived somewhere where it snowed more reliably, where it doesn't just hit and you're just like, boom, now it's snowing. But if I live somewhere a little bit more reliable in that regard, there's probably a few things I would like to do with photos and sort of maybe like perspective manipulation. Try to, an example of something I've done here is have someone posing and the sun, or whether it's the sun, the thing in my head is that it was at sunset. So the sun was the primary light source, but studio wise, you could do this too. But it was like for a spooky shoot that I was doing many, many years ago, probably like 5 years ago. And it was like have the model doing something, a certain pose, but then their shadow being cast on the wall, you have a completely different pose, like a much more sinister pose. And so you kind of obviously take that shot 2 separate times and then merge them together in like Photoshop or whatever. But I feel like you could do some stuff like that with snow, not per se the shadow thing, but something with snow angels, or I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent. But yeah, I feel that getting prepared for having certain times where you can shoot and not shoot. Right now in Austin, the weather is absolutely amazing. Like I honestly should be outside right now, just enjoying the fact that it's like, it's not cold, but it is cool. Like a long sleeve shirt is probably ideal. And it just feels so perfect. It's like, I don't know if you guys have this, but whenever fall hits, like if it hits in October, that's the best. But sometimes in Austin, it's not going to hit until mid to late November, or sometimes even doesn't hit till December, just because it's so hot. And when that fall weather finally does hit and you get that like breeze kind of blowing in and it's a little bit chilly, I feel like the inspiration just starts shooting out of me. But in addition to that, I always think back to what I think is a Goosebumps episode, where there's like a house on a cul-de-sac. There's some kids. This is like every single episode so far. But I just remember there being like this gust of wind blowing like a bunch of very large, typical fall type leaves towards the house. And every time, I mean, that's all I can remember of the episode. But every time fall comes, I just think of that memory of the wind blowing, and you have that leaves blowing and just the cool, perfect weather. Man. So yeah, now is my time. It's perfect that the carnival came through right now, because a week ago it would have been a little hot and maybe not as much fun. But man, it's been a blast the 3 nights that I've gone so far. And they had an interesting thing. The first one, and you guys will see this. This is in one of the upcoming videos that'll be on the channel here in November. Was going and doing long exposures at the carnival, and so I went and did all the long exposures, and then I was planning to go back and do a separate video on shooting a kind of mist filter on the Olympus E500. And kind of getting like that strong haze to all of the neon signs. And so I went back the second time with also the idea of I need to like get some additional shots, like kind of fill in the gaps for this long exposure video. And they had a Ferris wheel there the first night that I went, which is Saturday night. And when I went back Monday night, the Ferris wheel was gone. And there was just nothing there. And then when I went back Wednesday night, the Ferris wheel was back. And also more things had been added. Like, not so much rides, but some, I guess, like, stations where they sell stuff. I don't know if you guys knew this, but carnivals will just have, like, a small market in the carnival now. And maybe that's how it's always been. I mean, I can think back to like 2016, and a lot of the carnivals around that time would have like, I guess, a little bit of a marketplace, but it always catches me off guard. Like, I don't really want to, like, there's no game attached to it. It's literally just, oh, we're selling like hoodies and hats and t-shirts and sunglasses and like all this very knockoff stuff. Like, we have a Bluetooth speaker. It's like, why would I want to buy a Bluetooth speaker from a traveling carnival? But you know that Bluetooth speaker is there because they've been selling stuff like that. So somebody's buying it, which is just wild to me. But anyway, they brought in a lot of that stuff, a lot of like items to just sell for cash. Peak leaf colors passed about 3 weeks ago. Now the trees are mostly bare, cloudy too. Our trees down here have actually not even started really shedding yet. I mean, I guess they maybe have a little bit. I do have a small bit of leaves on the patio here, but yeah, there's still, I mean, it's very green right now. We don't get the nice, beautiful color change really. Like, you'll see 2 trees that change colors, and that's pretty much about it, unfortunately. But yeah, anyway, great to have you guys here. Let me know if there's something that you all want to talk about. I'm happy to do so. It's not just up to me what we discuss in these live streams, but I did have a few things queued up, as any good radio host instilled into me many, many years ago. And one of them is, I think, highly interesting for the nature of the general fan base of this channel, and really myself included. And I'm going to actually jump over to this other screen here. Perfect. We're all here now. And I guess I should zoom in on this a little bit too. So this is on MSN, but this was originally from Digital Camera World. Oddly enough, when I pulled up Digital Camera World, I could not find this article again, but I found it sort of linked here in MSN. So whatever. I guess MSN is helping us out this time around. But this is from Pentax, and it says, DSLRs are not what new generations are looking for. It's hard to attract new customers, admits Pentax. And this is also kind of off the same back of articles I've seen come out about how Ricoh and Pentax kind of big business right now is like the GR series and more of like the point and shoot style cameras. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of people who watch videos on this channel that love Pentax and love DSLRs. And I myself, pretty much for the most part, I'm like thinking in my head, other than the Canon that I picked up for like doing the video stuff on the channel, all the photography tools I use are at this point pretty much DSLRs as well. And huge fan of the Pentax 645D. So it's interesting, this article especially, because on the one hand, my initial thought is, I don't know, I kind of almost want to say like, duh. Like, there's really no difference in my mind whether you're using a DSLR or a medium, not a medium format, but a mirrorless camera. Like, if you built a brand new DSLR today, and you put in brand new components into that DSLR, it would be as good as a mirrorless. You know, you might have a mirrorless camera that's better than a DSLR. You might have a DSLR that's better than a mirrorless. Like, the only reason mirrorless are typically technologically better is because they're the most recently made item. But if Pentax rolled out a DSLR today, and we talked about on this live stream how there was a rumor they were going to put out a 61 megapixel DSLR. And as far as I know, that might still be on the table for Pentax. But it's like, there's no reason that 61 megapixel DSLR that they potentially might release here in 2025 wouldn't be as good or maybe even better than modern mirrorless. Because it's literally the only difference is one has a mirror and one does not. It doesn't really impact the sensor that much. Certainly does impact what kind of processor that you might want to put in there. But it's like, technologically speaking, a DSLR doesn't have to be considered obsolete. That said, I think it's also very understandable that when you have all these big camera brands pushing mirrorless, and you see everybody selling off their DSLRs and buying a mirrorless camera, that of course new generations are going to say, oh, DSLRs must be old and obsolete and outdated. I need to get a mirrorless camera. And it's like, so when I read this, I kind of just think to myself, well, duh, Pentax. I mean, I admire that Pentax sort of like opted to stick with DSLRs. But I think at the same time, they've made like no case really outside of, hey, you can keep all your same lens and infrastructure. They've not made any case as to why like actually sticking with a DSLR could be a good thing. Like, they could be talking about, hey, our battery life is going to be way better. Hey, our processor is going to be freed up to be able to process images faster or process better video with like lower latency in the video because we're not doing an EVF. So we don't need the processor to power the EVF, right? Like, they could be talking about like, hey, DSLRs actually have some advantages over mirrorless, which they absolutely do. But they never really did that. They were just like, oh, we're going to stick with DSLRs because then people can continue to use the same lens, which is great. But I think that kind of falls a little bit short because any brand who's put out a mirrorless camera will throw out an adapter so that all your old lens will still work on the newer mirrorless camera. And so I feel like if your sole decision is based on, can I continue to use my old lens, the mirrorless option still does technically allow you to do that. Maybe at potentially reduced functionality, but depending on what you're shooting, that might not even really matter. So I don't know. I feel like Pentax is having like this realization, like, oh, I don't understand. People don't want DSLRs. It's like, well, yeah, Pentax. That's why every other brand has switched to mirrorless, because that's sort of the tide, for better or for worse. That's sort of the tide that the industry has gone in. So now you have an uphill battle to convince Gen Z, when they're buying their very first big camera, that, oh, they should buy a DSLR. And they're going to say, well, then how come this is the only brand still offering a DSLR? Which it's like, and I would love to see a 61 megapixel Pentax DSLR come out. I would love to see, I mean, I still have my fingers kind of crossed that Pentax might do another medium format SLR or, DSLR camera. And maybe with the release of that, we could get some new lens also. Like I would be very, very interested in even though I don't have a 645Z, but like a 645Z successor. And I don't know if we would get anything like that at this point. I use DSLR cameras. I only have a few cameras that are not, same. Pentax, after releasing their Film 17 camera, thought we might get a film SLR. I still hear a lot of people talking about that too. Will we get like a film Pentax, more, I don't want to know if I should say professional, but like more of a full-bodied film camera? I think my camera froze here too, which is great. So I'll just turn that off. But I feel like it is a little bit surprising that they have felt this way. And I read this article, which, if you guys want to read it, I'd be happy to share the link. But yeah, they're mainly talking about how they're not that they're losing money on their DSLR stuff, but that they are making more of the money from things like the Ricoh GR series, which, I mean, those have been hot. Those are essentially in the same-ish sort of league as the X100V has been. Like that whole Fujifilm series has sold pretty much just as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is one of those things where it's sort of a duh moment. But I feel like they really could be doing more to showcase what the DSLR could be, and why, as a young person getting into photography for the first time, you would want to buy a Pentax DSLR. And yes, here we had that camera rumors that the Mark III is coming in 2025. I think this is the one that that we were talking about. Is this the 61 megapixel? Yeah. It looks like we're getting a flagship DSLR with the 61 megapixel. And it's like, that would be really great for Pentax to come out with something that you could, hopefully use your same equipment with, but which you'd be able to compete with the likes of Canon and Nikon and Sony and maybe to an extent even the kind of higher end Fujifilm stuff. I think that would be a real benefit to Pentax if they released this. But that does kind of call into question the success of this camera could be in jeopardy just based on the fact that if people felt like Pentax wasn't going to continue with the DSLR line after this camera, then they may say, well, why would I want to invest a bunch of money into this camera if it's going to be their last one? And I think that would be a reasonable thought. At the same time, I would say, boom, you have access to a wealth of lenses. Whereas if you buy into the Canon system, great, you got the brand new Canon camera, but what lens do you really have for it? I mean, they're putting out a lot more now, but any newer system, okay, yes, it has the promise and the hope of a grand future. But at the same time, it's like you have to wait a long time for lens to come out and the market to grow, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, one of the biggest benefits of the Pentax 645 series is you can pick up incredibly sharp lens for $200 to $400, and you can get a lens that will rival any lens. I mean, I'm thinking specifically of the 120 millimeter f4 macro FA autofocus lens for the 645 Pentax mount. I mean, that lens rivals, in my opinion, anything I've seen from Fujifilm, Canon, Nikon, whatever it may be. I've never seen a lens with such a level of corner-to-corner sharpness. Now, I do also have to preface that and say that is designed for the 645 sized mount, and I'm using it on a 645D, which sensor size, a little bit smaller. So we are cropping out the most extreme parts of the edges there. But even still, I mean, just the optical quality of that is superb. So anyway, thought this was interesting. I am actually still very excited to hear about this 61 megapixel camera, even though it's not something that I'd ever buy just because I don't own any Pentax full frame lens. Although, you know, oh man, I didn't even think about adapting those Pentax 645 lens to a tilt shift mechanism, then to this 61 megapixel camera, and be able to tilt and shift and literally manipulate the pane of focus and throw it onto a 61 megapixel sensor. That'd be awesome. I like Pentax for not having changed their mount so that you can use all their vintage lens. Yeah, same. Seems like the trend right now is small point and shoot vlogging content creator centric cameras. Pentax has never been strong in video. Yeah, and that is a big thing. Video is becoming increasingly very important to the general audience. And true that Pentax has not necessarily been the camera of choice for video. I would probably put Sony, Canon, and maybe Panasonic as like the three kind of best in terms of video. And then somewhere after those three, I'd say Fujifilm or Nikon are probably in there somewhere. Probably Fujifilm, although Nikon, having bought Red, does give them a pretty strong advantage where that's concerned. So Nikon's kind of, I don't know, guys. Nikon's on the up and up, I think. Nikon has been doing well lately. They really have. They really have. And good for them. You know, I think they fell off for a little bit, and they're getting their groove back. Certainly picking up the acquisition of Red and getting all those video patents, you know, and then adding that and being able to shoot internal RAW. I mean, that's not going to stay that way forever where they're the only one really who can do that widespread, but definitely an advantage for them right now. That's for sure. Let's see if this camera's working again. No, it's not. That is wild. What if we jump over here? It's still frozen. I got to unplug something, I think. Or reset this switch. I've had that happen before, but I don't know. Hold on, I'm going to jump under here for half a second and unplug and replug something. It'll be surprising if anything still works. I literally unplugged all the USBs from the back of my computer. So we'll see if that resets it here in a second. But Fujifilm has the Midas Touch right now. Oh, I do not have a mouse. Bring me my mouse back. See if we can reset that. Well, speaking of Fujifilm, new rig potentially coming out for Fujifilm with the there we go. Finally got the mouse back. With this sort of, I don't know if this is still considered a rumor or if this is official at this point, because it looks like it may actually be official that they're putting the GFX 102's massive, they say massive sensor, but it's just a regular, same size sensor as like the Pentax 645D. But anyway, that is big in terms of video. Medium format sensor into a cinema camera. And I don't know if it will, this probably says if it will just use like the regular lens. Yeah, it's just going to use the GF mount. So all of your existing Fujifilm lens would work for this, but they are going to put out whatever a power zoom is, which I guess is just going to have like some controls on it to be able to zoom without physically rotating it, maybe. Not exactly sure. But this is kind of an interesting move, in my opinion. And I guess there are other large format cameras. They're citing this Red V Raptor. Never heard of it. Ari Alexa 65. So I guess there is already some infrastructure by which these sorts of larger sensor cameras already exist. But this does seem like a fairly, I mean, I would interpret this as a fairly niche audience. The GFX line is already kind of a niche audience. And then a cinema specific version of that seems like it would just be more so. But it's also kind of an interesting move, in my opinion, since they spent, I feel like, some time really promoting the two newest GFX cameras as like, you know, these are big filmmaking tools. Like people are making short films on these cameras. So I haven't read through this article extensively, but it'd be interesting to see what advantages, especially on the processor and sort of software side, that this camera would have over just buying a GFX 102 or a 100S2, I think is the other version. But I guess they have some different, they already have maybe some, this is the GFX 100 too. Gotcha. But yeah, this is also the thing that I was thinking about, which is the rolling shutter performance in the GFX 100 too. Like these are medium format cameras, so they're not going to be able to process all that data as fast unless they're putting in just an insanely sized processor. So it's interesting, you know, how this camera would perform different from the GFX. Is it going to have like a significantly larger processor or multiple processors? And because of the body size, it's going to be able to cool this processor much better than the more compact body of the more photocentric version. I'm still frozen. I unplugged everything. I don't understand. That's wild. Is there a way to like, I even turned off the camera. Man, that's a bummer. How do you, oops. How do you unfreeze yourself? Yeah, I don't know how much this will cost, but I think $7,000 seems like that would be a little bit cheap, in my opinion. But I don't know. I guess we'd have to see like how much of this is all in one, and how much would you have to kind of, I don't know, I guess build out this rig. Like, do you have to have external monitors and stuff that aren't included, and so you're paying more for that, and they are thus saving money on those sorts of things? Or, you know, what's the deal in that regard? I wish I could figure out how to fix this camera though. There we go. Huh. Well, I guess that works for now until it freezes again. Yeah, $7,000. I think you're in the ballpark, but I would imagine it'd be more expensive. Yeah, I feel like this would be closer to the 10,000 in my opinion. Every time I think of looking into any Fuji camera, I get sticker shock with the glass cost. I go back to glass I have on my Pentax camera. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said it. I've gotten a lot of views on those Pentax 645D videos I made, like, I guess in January, so almost last year at this point. But I frequently get a comment about how, oh, you should have just bought the Fujifilm 50S because it's so much newer and you don't have to deal with the issues that the Pentax has in terms of processing time, and it's cheaper. And it is oddly true that you can find the 50S cheaper than the 645D. And for whatever reason, it's definitely cheaper than the 645Z. And yet it can do, I feel like, more than either one of those cameras. But at the same time, too many people tell me that in the comments of those videos. And then I have to remind them, well, you're not going to just do the price of the camera. You've also got to buy lens. And yes, of course, you can mount vintage lens, and that's great. But to me, if I have a camera, I want to have at least one or two native autofocus lens for that camera, you know? So it's like the Pentax 645D, I've got the 120 macro, and then I have the 45 to 85, which I don't use very often, but when I go out and do like street walks and stuff, it's a beautiful lens for that. And it is also very, very sharp. But it's like both of those lenses combined were probably $400 total. And I bought like mint condition lens. And it's like, okay, if you have that, I mean, maybe I paid $600. Let's assume I paid on the higher end. So we'll say it was $600 for those two lenses. And just the 120 millimeter alone on the Fujifilm side is going to run you like $1,800 used. And if you're not shopping well, you're going to find it around $2,000, $2,200. And if you buy it new, then it's like way over $2,000. I'm sure it is an incredibly sharp lens. And I'm sure the autofocus is slightly better because it's slightly newer than the Pentax. But I don't think there is a $1,200 to $1,400 improvement in image quality between the Pentax 120 and the Fujifilm 120. Like I'm willing to bet they're fairly close in image quality, but one of them is $200 to $300 and the other one is $1,800 to $2,400. So yeah, totally agree. I mean, the Fujifilm cameras are great, but the lens are really where it gets expensive, and you kind of have to like really figure out what kind of lens you would need for that system. Whereas on the Pentax, like I could just buy any old lens, and if I use it a ton, great. If I don't use it a ton, it wasn't that expensive. So there's that. Now I wish the Fujifilm, and I don't know, I guess because it's too niche, but I wish somebody would have come out with a Pentax 645 mount adapted to the GFX body with autofocus. It doesn't have to be the best autofocus, but some amount of autofocus, I think, that would have just been great. Or at the very least, just electronic communication to control the aperture. Because some of those lenses don't have a dedicated, sort of like, they require the camera to tell the lens when to move the aperture blades. And that doesn't seem to exist. It's like there is, I think, an adapter for the all manual, I think they call them A lens for the 645. But I'd love to be able to just pick up a GFX camera and then use the 2 Pentax lens, even if it was in manual mode, to still have the aperture blades fire. That would be perfect. But for some reason, it either doesn't exist or it existed but didn't sell well. And so that's a bummer. But that is, there is one other camera related thing, which is I saw and did only read a little bit of the article. It wasn't very long anyway. I kind of skimmed it. But they were talking about a Canon R7 Mark II potentially coming out in 2025. And I thought, that is so interesting. I have, I guess, what would be considered the Mark I of the R7, and only just now is there a Sigma lens option for this. But my initial thought was, well, who the hell would buy this camera when there's next to no APS-C lens dedicated for this system? Now, later in the article, they mentioned that Canon was going to come out with 2 Pro level APS-C lens and then like a third APS-C lens that would be maybe not a Pro, but maybe not necessarily a budget, like it would be a prime lens or whatever. And I think, number one, long overdue if they do that. But the other side of it is like, what are they going to put out and how expensive is it going to be? I think a 24 to 70 is in the works. And I don't know what the other one is. And then the prime lens, people were thinking that might be like a 30 millimeter prime or like a 35 millimeter prime. But interesting. I hope that Canon is serious about investing more into that APS-C line, because this Canon R7, in my opinion, rocks. It's really, really helped with videos on this channel to be able to use one camera to capture video and also get really great stills. Makes it really easy. Even if that's not the main camera that I'm using in the video, it does make capturing video whatever I'm doing so much easier. And the fact that the video is really reliable, it uses an entirely different set of settings than the photo side. So it's not like you have to constantly be adjusting dials. You just dial in what you need for the video, dial in what you want for the photos, and then just switch seamlessly back and forth. It's great. And I'm sure a Mark II would be even better. Probably has a bunch of stuff that I won't need or care about. But what good is it if there's no lens to support it? And good on Sigma to start putting out some lens, but that's not really a full replacement for the manufacturer themselves putting out good lens, especially when they're not even willing to open the lens mount all the way. So, if you're a Canon person, could be good news, especially if you're shooting APS-C, but we'll see. APS-C, we'll see. The trend also seems to be heavily trying to pull people in with film simulations, LUTs, etc., the instant upload to social media too. Yeah, I think those are really big components of Fujifilm lately, especially. A lot of times people will talk about especially the film simulations as one of the big benefits to buying a Fujifilm camera. And, for me, I'd never touch a film simulation. Like, I don't shoot in JPEG. Maybe if when you do the film simulation, your raw file has the ability to like undo that film simulation, then it might be fun to play around with. But for me, it's like, I'd like to edit my photos a certain way, and I generally like them all to be edited that same way. And so creating a fake film simulation, like, to me, I don't know. I understand the marketing component, and it's working for folks, but if I want film, I'll just bust out the Mamiya over here. I mean, that thing takes incredible photos. Like, literally on the last live stream, we were looking at 2 photos, and the digital one everyone thought was film, and the film one everyone thought was digital because it was so sharp and it looked so good. It's just like, I totally agree. The instant upload to social media also, very creator, I feel like, but at the same time, it's like, what's really the practical use case there? And typically, I've not used that specific tool, but similar tools from Fujifilm and other brands, the instant upload stuff barely works. It takes forever to upload, and the interface is clunky, and there's a lot of delay and latency. So it's just like the experience isn't seamless. Even these days, just like wirelessly transferring your photos over to your phone, but you took them in RAW, but what you get on your phone is a JPEG, and you're like, wait, I want the RAW, because my phone's a powerful tool, and I have Lightroom Mobile or whatever other app, so I could edit the RAW file here on my phone, but I'm getting a JPEG instead. To me, that's super annoying. But I also understand wireless transfer, or Bluetooth or NFC, whatever it may be. It's like, what's the stream of data going to look like? A RAW file is going to be a lot more data to try to transmit over Wi-Fi. So I understand the technical limitations, but at the same time, yeah, feels a bit gimmicky. I wish camera companies would rethink names. All these Mark II, 5, yeah. I felt the same way, especially with what brand was it? I think Sony for sure, and then maybe also Canon, where they have not filled out the line, but it's like you have the R1, and that's like their best, and then the R3, and then the R5. So you're skipping the Rs 2 and 4. And then you have an R6. So you don't skip any there, because you go R6, R5, R6, R7, R8. But then there's no 9. So then you go to 10. But what's also weird is that the R5 and R6 are full frame. The R7 is APS-C. The R8 is full frame again. But I also understand that the R8 is like the budget full frame, and the R7 is the flagship APS-C. So I guess it kind of makes sense that it would come higher in that naming convention. But yeah, I don't know. That's weird. What's weirder is the Sony naming convention. It's like the A1, that's our top of the line. But then the A9 is like our pro level, kind of a step down from the A1, but still pro and still awesome. And then we go to the A7 series, and we have the A7R, the A7, and the A7S. And it's like, so you go 1, 9, 7. That doesn't make sense. And then you go into like the A60, A6000. So it's like, well, wouldn't that just be the A6 if the A7, or is the A7 really the A7000? I don't know. It's confusing. The names mean nothing, really. And they sometimes barely even clue you in, because used to, you would think usually if a camera, whatever their flagship is, if it's like the, A1 or the R1, okay, so the lowest number means the best, and the higher the number means generally it's further down, it's closer to entry level. But then other brands, the higher the level sometimes means the better the camera. So like the GFX 100 is better than the GFX 50, so, or it could just be iterations, it could be the T3, right? Is that what it is? The XT3, XT4, XT5. Anyway, it's interesting stuff. The worst one, though, in my opinion, is the Olympus OMD EM10 Mark III. That is a mouthful. I am so glad. The one, you love OM system or hate them, the one great move that they made for sure was condensing that naming convention just down to the OM1, the OM5. Maybe we'll have the OM10 come out. But yeah, OMD, EM10, Mark, blah, blah, blah. That's just so much. Anytime I make a video where I'm talking about that camera, I feel like I'm doing a riddle in my mouth just to speak about it. But yeah, anyway. So what else? One thing that I am going to do on this channel is I'm going to take the zine, which is right back here. And of course, if anyone would like a copy, send me an email or DM me on Instagram or something like that, and we can work out getting it shipped out to you. But I am going to send a copy of this over to Ted Forbes on Art of Photography. I know likely everyone who watches this channel has heard of Ted's channel, and I think at one point he was going to stop doing them, but I think maybe he does still do them. But he used to do like every Friday he would review photo zines, or he would do like a mail day, but he would also like review zines that people, or photography books that people would send in. And, sometimes he'd love them. Sometimes he'd give a lot of constructive criticism. Sometimes he'd fall somewhere in the middle. And I do remember distinctly watching a video where he said, I'm done with all that. I'm not going to do those videos anymore. But then I saw some more come out. So I need to verify that he is still doing it. But if he is, I'm going to send one out and see if he might be interested in talking about it on his channel. So that'll be exciting. The other benefit there is I can work out the best method for shipping out some of these to folks that are interested in getting a copy. And I can use the experience of sending Ted one as a good, sort of test of like what's the best route to getting one of these sent out to people. Like what is the best sleeve or package to put them in, all that good stuff. So plus, I want to make sure they don't arrive bent and crinkled, but I also have, I think in most cases, some little like extras that I want to put in there potentially. So we'll see on like what size packaging everybody has available, but that would be cool. And if he did review it, I would do a reaction vid where I watch it, even though he might rip me apart. And I don't know how that would go, but yeah, maybe I'll like react. I'll pull it up, watch it, react to it. That'd be cool. So yeah, and then upcoming videos on the channel. We already have all of November scheduled out. So every Saturday in November, there's going to be a video. There'll also be some shorts mixed in as well. I think I am going to start doing more shorts. Historically, they haven't really done very well for me, or really like, usually a short will come out that is tied specifically to a video I do, and it doesn't seem to like impact whether people watch the larger video or not. So I'm kind of looking at them as completely separate, even though I'm putting like, oh, this is related to this larger video. I'm mentally treating them as just two separate things that exist. But I have had a lot of fun lately, and it's allowed some quick creativity that doesn't take hours and hours and hours to put together the full video. So I think, I don't know, they've been nice to do lately, and I found a tool that can also help me make them look even better. So I think we'll start having shorts more consistently, even if they're not really being watched that much. They're still fun to put together. So that's really the thing that's most important. But as far as the content that we have coming up, 2 of the next videos will be kind of more of like the talking head style. One of them is related to a series that I did not intend to start doing, but that has sort of happened, which is like photography, mental health, and just talking about some of the things that I've noticed get pushed a lot online or that people seem to be feeling. And a lot of times they're things that I have experienced, and so that's why I'm speaking on them. But I have one about cutting out the noise in photography. That's going to be coming up on this Saturday, so in 2 days. And then the next Saturday, I have a video that is a bit admittedly anti Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And that's going to be coming out the following Saturday. And then the final one for November is Carnival Long Exposures with the Fujifilm GFX 50S. So we were just talking about the Fujifilm system, and I have gotten my filthy hands on a GFX. I don't know how long I'll be able to have it for, but I thought, oh, I'm going to make stuff with this camera. But yeah, the lens are too expensive. So I've been looking into adapters, and I picked up an adapter for adapting my Mamiya 645 lens onto this Fujifilm camera. And that's been perfect because on the Fujifilm or on the Mamiya side, I have a 45 millimeter, an 80 millimeter macro, and then the really, really sharp 110 for the Mamiya system. So that kind of gives me most of the range I would normally want to kind of play with. But I also wanted to experiment, and this is not in this video, but I wanted to experiment with doing some tilt with maybe like a even larger format lens, like a 6.7 lens from Mamiya or Pentax, most likely Pentax, and being able to play around with the pane of focus or the plane of focus. What is it? Pane of focus? Plane of focus? Oh gosh, now I can't think of it. But so yeah, that could be a future video in the making too. But yeah, this next one will be long exposures, and I think we got some really good long exposures, and I put a lot of effort into this particular video, so I'm super stoked about that one. And then we've also got then the November recap, which I've been doing. First week of every month is a recap of the previous month's photos that maybe didn't get used in a video, didn't get posted to Instagram, whatever it may be. And I've been really enjoying that, so I'll probably continue to do it at least through November and December, and then I'll just see if it's worth the time to do. But that'll be the first week of December. And then the second week of December is I took this camera, the Olympus E500, and I put this lens filter on here. It doesn't really look like much, but it's got like a coating on it that makes it very misty. And when you just take photos of normal stuff, you don't really see any difference in the final image. But once you take a picture, especially at night, but even during the day, of something that is lit up like a light, or in this case, the neon lights of the carnival, then you get a really beautiful haze to the image, which looks really, really cool. I think I just froze yet again. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can unfreeze it. What did I do last time? It didn't work this time, so I'm gonna have to unplug it again. Pro Mist filter, yes, it was the Pro Mist filter. And I think it's like a 1/2 is the strength of it. And I found it to be pretty strong. Geez, how do we... Let's see. We're back to having another... Well, perfect time, because I'm going to actually jump us over to this, let's see here, set of photos that I did with this filter. I haven't really edited any of these, so we'll see if they're any good. But I'm sure they'll get a bit better as some edits happen. Let's see if I can find, where's one of the ones that was looking pretty good. So you can kind of see the effect here. I started to play around with the exposure because that seemed to also make the look stronger. I think it's one of these. Yeah, like here's a good example. So it has a much stronger sort of haziness to it. It's not super clear. And halation effect. There you go. That's what it is. The halation effect. Yes. Bingo, bingo. So yeah, that is one that was really cool to play around with at the carnival. I think the carnival had like no shortage of things to photograph. And it makes me interested in potentially trying this on like the Pentax. I got to see if I have any lens that use this same size filter. I don't think I do. I think I'd have to buy another filter to make it happen, but it would be cool to try it out on a larger camera like that, or a larger format camera, I should say. But yeah, there was a few in here that were like really cool to see. Where's the other one? I was shooting a few of the rides, which some of these just did not come out that great because it was so dark, and the OMD, no, not the OMD, the E500 was struggling a little bit to lock a solid focus. But I mean, it is still hitting focus. It's just maybe not in the perfect spot. But I don't know. Some of these were really cool. I'll have to dig through here and then share a few of them out to you guys. But yeah, it was a fun filter to play around with, and at the same time, now the camera doesn't work at all. It doesn't even show the old version. Let's see. Maybe it's not all the way plugged in. Maybe if I unplug this HDMI cable. No, nothing. Dang. Technology, man. Sometimes it goes, and sometimes it's a pain. Let's see. I unplugged every USB out of the back. Maybe if I do that again. Although it could also be, I have a USB switch selector which sometimes does have a few weird things happen to it, and it doesn't want to play as nicely. So I wonder if that could also be the case a little bit. I hit reset on it, so maybe... There we go. I think it is this USB switch selector, which that's a little bit of a bummer. But anyway, yes. So that will be a video in December where I'll kind of talk about this. I did some filming of the carnival this night too. But the added benefit to that video is that it's sort of a collab with Tape Collector, where he came out and brought I actually didn't see. No, I did see. We filmed it. He brought like a VHS. I think it was a full VHS camera. And so he did a bunch of video work on the VHS camera, and he's going to send over the footage from that, and we're going to kind of splice it into the video that I make. I only did kind of very basic stuff with the R7. So mostly what I was just doing was taking photos. So will be kind of interesting to see. He is, I know I tried a few times with this camera way back here, which is actually a Canon ZR60. But yeah, I took this out a few times and made some stuff, but it's not very good. And I mean, you're probably saying duh, but it was not the sharpest quality. And I don't know what he does. I know he has like a whole rig set up where he's like sending tape in, and then he's like doing all these things and exporting it into something else. And anyway, his footage comes out looking really sharp for VHS. At least it usually does. And I think that's down to just like different models of cameras, just like lens and photography cameras. They've got differing levels of how sharp they are, how good a resolution. Certainly, the processor, a lot of these have like sensors in here that capture the light and then put it onto the tape. And so some of those sensors are probably better than others. So his footage always looks really good. But if you like concert stuff, he films a lot of concerts on VHS, but with good quality audio. So it's like the audio sounds great, but the visuals have that strong VHS vibe. So that'll probably be a big part of that video. And then we will have our holiday special, kind of like we did with the Halloween stuff, where we had sort of a Halloween video doing some candy art. I have been collecting some candy that is holiday themed, and so I'm going to do a shoot with all of that candy. And so we'll kind of put together a very similar video to the Halloween one, but just for the holidays. And then that pretty much puts us at the end of the year, which then we start getting into videos like I did last year that were really, really fun to do, which was like what were my top 3 cameras of 2024. What are maybe 5 of my favorite photos that I took in 2024. We'll also do our yearly kind of wrap up on what were our goals of 2024 and did we accomplish them? And then also what are our goals for 2025? Because that's one of the funnest ones to do in January, is to sort of set the goals for photography and everything. And what's great about those is I get to say what my goals are, but a lot of times you guys share your goals as well. And then similarly, at the end of the year, we can go back and I can talk about what I was successful in and what I wasn't successful in. And same thing, I can have an opportunity to hear from you guys of your goals. What were you guys successful in, or what did you have an opportunity to try to do better in the future on. So those are always really exciting for me. But that'll carry us through into January at that point. So a lot of videos mapped out over the next couple months, which is exciting. It's nice to have all of November done and have some good stuff already in the works for December, because I always like having a little more time and not feeling that I've got to stress and knock a bunch of stuff out, or just, what I have done a few times this year is only upload twice in the whole month. And I prefer to upload at least once a week, if not do a little more than that. But the tape to digital is all over the place. There are several cheap ways of conversion, and there are more complicated but great image transfer. Yeah, I'm very much in the pack of finding. I've probably found kind of a mid to low tier way to import this footage into my computer. It's definitely not the bottom of the barrel. There's some that are just like terrible transfers. And mine, I have, I think it's a DVI cable, or a DV cable is what it's called, but it just plugs right into the camera, and then I can play the footage on the camera, and via that cable, I think is how it works. It's been a minute since I did it. It'll transfer it over. And then I was using Adobe After Effects. I guess I was using some tool, maybe it was Adobe After Effects or Adobe Premiere. I think I had an older version of Adobe Premiere where I was using to bring the footage in and deinterlace it. And then I would bring it over to Adobe After Effects and do this 4K upscale. And even just for like a 30-second clip, it would take 15 to 30 minutes to upscale that. But when it was done, it looked perfect in 4K. It did not lose anything. It didn't get pixelated as it got blown up or anything. It worked really well, but it was highly unusable for the amount of time you would have to process such a short clip. So anyway, it is what it is. I got a semi-pro high 8. High 8 is one of the ones, it seems like, when Tape Collector films, his high 8 camera is like the sharpest of them. But semi-pro high 8 Sony cam from a local access TV station. Oh, that's sick. For $10 though. Man, that is a steal right there. $10. You cannot find even a basic thing like this for $10 in most cases. And especially one from a local TV access station. I'm sure it might be a little bit big or bulky, but I bet if you were to look that thing up on eBay model number wise, it's probably going for hundreds of dollars, would be my guess. I've seen a lot of those, like skateboarding. Obviously, back in the day, I don't know if they were high 8 or VHS or, what they were, but a lot of those skateboarding videos were shot on those older kind of like VHS or high 8 cameras. And if you look up some of those really popular ones from back in the day, they're expensive. I mean, they're like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I saw one that was like, I think it was like $600. And I just thought, man, that is insane to just get. I mean, I guess it's because it's doing, I think it was doing 1080p on tape, which is a bit of a feat in of itself. But I was just blown away that it was $600 for something. I love old gear, but I also, one of the things I love about old gear like this E500 was that I think I paid maybe $60 for the camera plus 2 kit lens, and then only maybe $100 more for the really nice lens that I have for it. So very, very cheap. And many pieces of older gear are very cheap, but yeah, I guess it just boils down to what you're after. Nice that you got it for $10 though. I mean, that's sick. Oh boy. So yeah, those are our upcoming videos. that's a bit about the zine. And the Pentax Fujifilm stuff. The only other thing I had written down really was thoughts on the Fujifilm GFX 50S that I've used a little bit. I want to say actually that I used that camera in the Halloween episode. Actually, I remember I did, because that was the whole bit. It was a Frankenstein setup that I used that with. And then I just used it for this upcoming video of all the long exposures at the carnival. And I will say it did perform well, but I am not used to the button layout, the behavior, or the menu setup of that camera. And so nothing against the quality of the camera, but just, sometimes you pick up a camera and you just kind of know how to use it. And other times you have to really reset your mind and start rethinking about how you view cameras. And that's definitely how it felt with the Fujifilm. Is like, this is an entirely different language almost that I'm having to learn in order to shoot with this camera. Which, I mean, I picked it up quick, so it didn't interfere with the shoots too much, but it definitely didn't have that sort of like optimized, I'm in the zone feeling, because you're kind of battling the camera a little bit. And any new camera you pick up, you have that experience to an extent, but it's just what's the level that you're going to feel that. And then once you get acquainted with it, you're rocking and rolling. But yeah, it definitely wasn't as smooth as this Canon R7, or even as I remember the Pentax 645D being when I first picked those cameras up. But I think a lot of that just boils down to design logic and things of that nature. So image quality wise, still solid, but I don't notice anything that stands out as something that the Pentax doesn't have. So even though the Pentax is like 8 years older from an image quality standpoint, and I guess it's also 10 megapixels less, it feels the same in terms of image quality. So, but anyway, I think, what are we at? We're at, this one was always going to be a little bit of a short one, but I think also with the camera issues that we're running into, I'll probably wrap it up here. And try to figure out what problems this camera was having so I can resolve them before the next live stream. Might do another live stream here in November, especially if there's one I can do a little bit longer. But otherwise, the next one I'll do in December. So I'll be doing one a month at least, if not a little bit more frequent than that. But otherwise, appreciate you jumping in and chatting with me, and anyone who jumped in and watched. Appreciate the likes on the video. That always helps out. And for anyone watching after this was live, definitely feel free, if you have topics or things that you want to talk about in the next one in December, drop those in the comments. And then any questions that anyone has, any thoughts that anyone has, always happy to answer those after the fact. Love getting to engage with everybody. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's probably going to do it for me. I appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoy the videos that I have teed up here in November. And otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. But for now, I'm out.